Lonely is the road that finds your potion stack all but gone. When you're down to your last caramboin, your seed and herb stores have run dry. But before you think to question why, you begin to doubt if this Ironman thing was really for you. But hear me out, there's still work to do. Before we get into the more specific things you might need, I'd like to briefly cover how you can get some miscellaneous raw materials while playing the game. Now, of course, your gathering skills are going to come into play here, and you'll need to level those anyway, but I highly doubt you need me to tell you to go chop trees if you need logs. Oh boy. A lot of traditional gathering methods now have associated skilling bosses and minigames. Some are done more for the XP and their uniques, but a few can really help you stock up on supplies on an early to mid-game Ironman. The ones I'd classify as skilling bosses to be aware of are Wintertot, Temperos, Herblore, and Zolcano. And similarly, the most relevant skilling minigames for your average Ironman are Motherlode Mine, Blast Furnace, Giant's Foundry, Guardians of the Rift, and Veil Totems. A lot of Ironmen choose to stay at Wintertot as long as they can stand for the early supply game. They did change the way the damage in the encounter works, so it's less important to do all your fire making early than it used to be. It's also cool if you get the Tome of Fire or Dragon Axe early, but not a big deal at all. Now, I usually try to avoid Dailyscape and Shopscape as much as possible, but I should prepare you for the reality that you're much better off if you stay on top of some of your dailies and weeklies. Checking on your Kingdom of Miscellanea once a week when you do Tears of Guthix is a good start. I would put your workers on herbs for potions, hardwoods for construction, or possibly even maples for fletching and early game money. Things you could look at doing at least once a day are your farm run, farming contract, birdhouse run, and even collecting some of your diary reward items, like battle staves from Zaf after the Varrock diary, sand from Bert after Hand in the Sand, and buckets of slime and bone meal from Robin after the Mauritania diaries to charge your bone crusher. There are others, but they're probably not worth remembering about most of the time. Slayer, bossing, and other PVM should keep you topped off on most other random supplies you might need, which I'll elaborate on as it becomes relevant, but for now let's get into some of the more specific things you may be struggling with. It's time to talk about one of the most important types of supplies for any account, your food. I've included this graphic from one of my old videos so you can screenshot it if you want, but it doesn't include the hunter meats, which we'll talk about in just a minute. All the relevant foods in Old School pretty much come from one of two gathering skills, the more traditional source being fishing. The most notable exception is Sarah Brews, which I'll cover in the potion and herblore section of the video. We Ironmen are out here living off the land like it's a survival game. Yeah, not that one. Fishing caramboins and then sharks and up was your best option for hard food for a long time. With the addition of hunter meats, this isn't exactly the case anymore, but caramboins are still a necessary combo food. If you were unaware, a combo food can be eaten in the same tick after another hard food to double eat. You can also triple eat by quickly clicking your hard food, then potion, then combo food. It gets a little more complicated than that, but that's all you really need to know unless you're pretty deep into PvP. You'll probably need to fish a ways past 76 fishing for sharks before you get to 80 cooking to cook them. What I'm saying is that cooking might likely be the real bottleneck to your food gathering if all you're doing is fishing. You can AFK a lot of caramboins with the fish barrel from Temperos, and then when you get to Zulrah you should be getting a lot of grapes to help with the cooking XP. When you're fishing for sharks, you have the option of fishing minnows in the fishing guild with the full angler's outfit and 82 fishing, or harpooning for sharks directly with 76 fishing. If you're harpooning or raw dogging the sharks, you can use the new shark lures you get as drops from some bosses. It's actually a pretty random assortment of sources, to be honest. You can choose to use 1, 3, or 5 lures at a time, and they'll increase your catch rate significantly. You'll be getting more sharks per hour doing this than minnows, and it's more AFK, but the XP rates reflect that, at about a third of the XP, I think. The new meats you get from hunter creatures work a little differently than your standard food. They have an initial heal, then a secondary heal 7 ticks later. This makes them almost like a healing over time effect, but the second heal won't proc if you eat another piece of food, unless it's a combo food like caramboine. You'll be getting a lot of great food from Hunter once you get into the later Hunter rumors, which you can take in the Hunter Guild in Varlamore. The last type of food supply I want to discuss is blighted foods. Blighted supplies work the same as normal supplies, except they can only be used in the wilderness and PvP worlds and minigames. They're really nice for Wildy Slayer and, well, PvP, but that's about all you need to know about them. Farming is a great way to get herbs and secondaries passively, but it does take a little more setup to get started for an Ironman account, and that starts with getting seeds. The most straightforward way of obtaining seeds is probably to thieve master farmers, but this can really suck at low levels, and the seeds scale with your farming level, so you have a much better chance of getting the good herb seeds, namely Renar, Snapdragon, and Snapegrass, after level 75 to 85 farming. This presents a problem at early thieving and farming levels, so it's better to pick up seeds from farming contracts within the farming guild, and drops from monsters you, being an Ironman and all, should be killing anyway, like Dagonoth, Turoth, Kurask, Aberrant Spectres, Necriels, Royal Titans, Demonic Gorillas, Tormented Demons, etc. Yield bonuses are crucial for getting the most XP and resources from your time farming, so I'll quickly run you through them. You get magic secateurs from the Fairy Tale Part 1 quest, which you've surely done, because while short and tragically incomplete, it is technically the most rewarding quest line in the game. Until recently, I thought you had to have the secateurs equipped to get the benefit of roughly 10% increased minimum crop yield, but that is not the case. They do in fact work in your inventory. Their buff benefits most harvestable farming patches, as well as harvesting the herbivore. Apparently they don't work for seaweed, which I didn't know until recording this video. Ultra compost is simple to make, but it can be a little tedious before you get the bottomless compost bucket. There are two main ways to go about making it yourself. One way is to make super compost by adding any of several types of fruit and berries to a compost bin and waiting for them to break down. Charter ship traders will sell pineapples you can use for this, and the best spots to buy them are Brimhaven, noting them at the Leprechaun, or Port Khazard and banking them. Growing watermelons for your super compost is also pretty solid when you don't have snapegrass seeds, and make sure to harvest your fruit trees. The other method would be to make regular compost with weeds or whatever you have lying around in your bank, then add a compost potion made with Harlander and volcanic ash straight to the bin to make it into super compost. Then with either method, you turn the super compost into ultra compost by adding volcanic ash to the bin. Volcanic ash is just a stackable resource that you can mine on Fossil Island. There is also a fertile soil spell on the Lunar Spellbook, which gives the benefit of super compost at first, but can be upgraded at the volcanic mine with the ash-covered tome to work as ultra compost. But unless you have a maxed house already for the teleports, I doubt you're using that. Payments for farming patches aren't worth worrying about in my opinion unless you already have what the farmer wants in your bank. Just sending it with Ultra Compost is good enough for me, but if you do want to pick up some baskets and thieve some fruit in Hosidius, that is an option. Now I don't always talk about plugins, but I think there are a few for farming that can be very helpful to you. The default time tracking plugin in RuneLite is nice to remind you where every patch is and when it'll be ready. The item identification plugin puts an abbreviation on seeds and herbs, and the Herblore recipes plugin gives you some information when you hover over them in your inventory. The bank tag and bank tag layout plugins are also really good for quickly swapping to all your farm run equipment and back to minimize friction in your gameplay. Some farming patches have unlock requirements, but just use as many herb patches as you can, planting any secondaries like limpwort root and snapegrass that you have seeds for as well. It's a good idea to leave a bush or cactus that you walk by planted so you can harvest it if you go there often. An example would be the cactus patch in the farming guild, or the bush patch near the fairy ring in Ardoin. So if you're wondering what herbs to plant, my recommendation is Renar, Snapdragon, and Toadflax when you have them. Then when you don't, plant herbs for combat boosting potions like Irits, Cadentines, Quarm, Torstol, or just plant whatever you have secondaries for to get Herblore XP. At level 45 farming, you get access to the first section of the farming guild, where you can find the seed storage vault next to a bank chest. You can now also use the big compost bin that holds twice the amount as the regular bin, as well as some basic farming patches, a cactus patch, and a master farmer you can thieve seeds from. With the first tier of farming contracts, you should start to get a decent supply of seeds. And as you get your farming level up, you'll gain access to more areas within the farming guild and more types of farming patches. Herblore is a boss in the second tier of the farming guild, unlocked with 65 farming. Killing her is super quick, it's pretty fun to try and beat your best times on, and gives you some nice farming XP, as well as having some drops that can really help with farming. The best of which being the bottomless compost bucket, which doubles any compost you put into it and holds 10,000 charges. But Herblore also drops anima seeds. Anima seeds require 76 farming to plant, and there are 3 types, all giving different buffs to farming. They're planted in this special patch next to Herblore. Some other types of patches to be aware of are trees and fruit trees for the XP, hardwoods for XP, construction, and woodcutting, and the giant seaweed patch underwater on Fossil Island is your best friend for crafting. Jute patches exist in this game, believe it or not, and may be the only way for Ironman to really do drift net fishing, if that's something you wanted to do for some reason. The tithe farm is the last thing I want to talk about in this farming section. It's a great way to get farming XP, as well as the herb sack, seed box, and farming outfit. You can also get herb boxes, seed packs, auto weed, grape seeds, and Beloga's Blessing, which lets you harvest Zamorak grapes from the Hosidius Vinery for making wines of Zamorak. I've already covered which herbs make the most useful potions in the farming section, but you should really make every potion you can for Herblore XP in the early game. That being said, I'll show you how to get some of the more relevant secondaries. You can grow your own limpwort root, potato cactus, white berries, cactus spine, and snape grass like we talked about before. But if you need extra snape grass, you can always pick it up on Waterbirth Island. This is one of the many reasons to have a Lunar Isle portal in your house. You can collect Mortmire fungus with your blessed sickle in the swamp with a Salve graveyard portal. And you can just buy chocolate from the RFD chest and Eyes of Newt from the Herblore shops. Birdhouse runs, giant mole, and hunter rumors all give bird nests. And you can get Zammy wines from Neckreels, Krill, Calfight Queen, or telegrabbing them in the wilderness, or by growing grapes with Beloga's Blessing from Tithe Farm. Red spider's eggs drop in bulk from Sarachnis, or you can pick them up in Edgefield Dungeon. Vorkath and other blue dragons can drop a scaly hide you can get dragon scales from, and that about covers most of the important secondaries for a large portion of your Herblore grind. Mastering Mixology is an Herblore minigame in Varlamore that allows you to get Herblore XP without gathering secondaries, which is nice, but you won't be getting any potions from them, so make sure to use your less useful herbs. It's good XP, and some of the rewards are definitely worth your time. At 80 Hunter, you can track the Herbivore. This is a great source of herbs, and Runelight does all the work for you. Make sure you bring magic secateurs and an herb pouch. You can also set up your Hunter Rumor block list to give you plenty of Herbivore tasks, which I went over more in my Ironman's Guide to Varlamore. The rumors themselves give you a good supply of herbs as well. I should also mention that you can use the Moonlight Moths like prayer potions. Catching one barehanded will restore 22 prayer points, and putting one in a jar will add an AoE effect to the prayer restoration. You can also add a piece of raw hunter meat to the jar with a pestle and mortar to make it a 2-dose potion. You can and will, of course, get herbs and potions from PVM, which are mostly the Slayer monsters and bosses we talked about in the How to Get Seeds section, as well as raids. In fact, most later game content shits out enough supplies to be relatively self-sustainable, but if you're there, you probably realize that already. But if you're trying to get a couple Cerebrews for early game quest bosses or something, they can drop from the Grubby Chest, Demonic Gorillas, and Grotesque Guardians. The last Herblore tip I have is to organize your bank. Yes, I'm talking to you. Crafting on an Ironman is comparatively simple to a lot of the other skills when it comes to maintaining supplies. The bulk of an Ironman's crafting XP will usually come from blowing glass. So let's cover how to blow like the pros know. Your ultimate goal is the super glass make spell with giant seaweed you farm off the coast of Fossil Island, and buckets of sand that you mine at the sandstone grinder in the desert, which is a BYOB scenario by the way. Then just do like your mom and blow the best thing you can until it's time to move on to the next one. But thankfully you freshies can just buy your early game crafting levels from the charter ship traders in Port Khazard. When you get 87 crafting to make light orbs, you can fix the goblin lamps in Dorgish Khan and actually use the things you're crafting for something other than battle staff orbs. Gems and bars for jewelry can be a nice bit of supplemental crafting XP that will stack up in your bank. You'll need some for transportation anyway, and you'll definitely end up with a lot of gold bars from smithing. You can get more gems from general mining when wearing a charged Amulet of Glory, and you can exchange stardust from your AFK mining for gem bags. Bracelets and tiaras are easy XP, and you should also be making battle staves regularly for money. Crafting flax into bowstrings makes a surprising comeback in 2025 with the addition of the new fletching minigame Veil Totems. The bowstring spool at S6, which means you get 5 extra copies for the uninitiated, will hold 100,000 bowstrings that can be used directly from that one slot in your inventory. And with the bales of flax from the minigame and either the lunar spell Spin Flax or the Kandarin Medium Diary, you'll get a significant chunk of crafting and fletching XP if you have a lot of materials saved up, which many Ironmen will. Dehyde bodies from dragon leather you tan will be another way to use your resources for crafting XP, but this video is about maintaining supplies, so let's move on to the next thing you'll need to stay stocked up on, your ammunition. Making cannonballs tends to be a controversial topic amongst the Ironman community. Many people would argue that cannonballs are not worth making on an Ironman account, but I conditionally disagree. There are times where some low activity smithing, maybe even with the double ammo mold from Giant's Foundry, is just the right thing to do with my steel bars and second monitor, or on my phone. It makes some really low engagement gameplay tangibly benefit the slowest skill in the game. Some wildy bosses drop cannonballs, and custodian stalkers in the new area of Varlamore after the Shadows of Custodia quest drop them pretty regularly, as well as Waska seeds for prayer regeneration potions. You can also buy the ores you need at the Blast Furnace shop whenever you get a surplus of GP, so all things considered, I'd say cannonballs aren't completely irrelevant for an Ironman account. Now let's run through some of the other forms of ammunition you're going to need. Broad bolts are a viable fletching XP method that works out well for early game Slayer ammunition, and are the equivalent of adamant bolts. Ruby and diamond bolts can be sustained through mining with a charged Amulet of Glory, or maybe the occasional trip to the gem mine in Shiloh Village. And sunlight and moonlight antler bolts from Hunter Rumors are a nice upgrade when you're not using ruby and diamond bolts. Darts are easy enough to smith after the Taurus Trap quest, amethyst will come from AFK mining later game, and arrows are common rewards from Last Man Standing in the Gauntlet. You might need a minute before we start talking about rune crafting. In the early game, you may be buying a good bit of your runes from shops. The best rune shop with 0 requirements is in the Mage Arena, but you do have to go through the wilderness to get there, so if you're a hardcore or something, maybe use Ali Morasane's shop in Al Kharid after the feud and Rogue Trader quest. The shop in Western Varlamore sells solid runes early on as well, but in smaller quantities. If you only need elemental, chaos, or death runes, then you can use the shops in Port Sarum, Varrock, or the Void Knight Outpost. Baba Yaga's house on Lunar Isle is the only place you can buy astral runes. You unlock the Guardians of the Rift minigame after the Temple of the Eye quest, letting you craft most types of runes directly and without pure essence. All the rewards from the activity are good, as well as the XP and runes, so you'll probably spend a lot of time here. Low-intensity rune crafting methods like the Orania Altar and Bloods and Souls in Korend can be nice when you don't want to pay much attention. And the Scar Essence mine after partial completion of Desert Treasure 2 lets you get pure essence for free and turn GP into runes without using shops. The different kinds of runic extract you get will give you a ton more runes when you're doing regular rune crafting. It is expensive, but a nice alternative to hopping worlds and buying runes from shops. Slayer monsters, Volcano, bosses, and raids will drop a fair number of runes as well.
Prayer, making you better than you really are.
The Chaos Altar in the Wilderness or making offerings to Ralos in Varlamore are the two main ways of training prayer on an Ironman. The Ectofunctus and using your own gilded altar aren't worth it for most accounts. Oh hey guys, he drank that gross shit again. I suppose we should start listening to his prayers for the next 5 minutes. This vexes me. Dragon bones are probably what most people think of when they think of prayer in Old School. Blue dragons in Taverley Dungeon, brutal black dragons from Slayer, dragons in the Myths Guild after Dragon Slayer 2, and Vorkath will probably cover where you get most of your dragon bones from, but you could also do some green dragons in the wilderness if you get bored. Blessed bone shards from various Varlamore activities are a nice supplement, but you can also bless your own bones and chisel them into bone shards. With Sunfire Splinters and Wine, this becomes better than the Gilded Altar, but you're still better off using the Chaos Altar in the Wilderness if you want the most XP per bone. And at 95 Slayer, you can start stacking Hydra Bones, but if you're there, once again I'm pretty sure you're just here for the vibes, and I appreciate you. Also make sure to pick up the Bone Crusher from the Mauritania Hard Diary, the Ash Sanctifier from the Korend Hard Diary, and the Ectoplasmator from the Soul Wars. I doubt you'll regret having any of them. What are you still doing here?